Hey everyone, Rho here. Oh man, what a week to say I'm gonna do a week special. I am sweating in here today. On a serious note, make sure you're all staying hydrated and safe in the sun, everyone. And especially so to those countries currently suffering wildfires. I hope you're all doing okay. On to today, and well, our quest to find the strongest chapter has begun. Yesterday we discussed the Ultramarines taking on the Blood Ravens, the Salamanders going against the Iron Hands, and the Black Templars against the Crimson Fists. If you missed that, make sure to go back and give it a listen before continuing on today. Remember, it's your opinion that matters, so make sure to vote in the polls for who you want to win. Or rather, who you think should win. Today we're finishing up the first round, with the Blood Angels arriving to take on the Minotaurs, the Dark Angels against the Raven Guard, the Space Wolves versus the White Scars, and the Carcharodon Astra versus the Imperial Fists. Now we'll follow the usual format of discussing the two chapters, with me giving my personal thoughts, and you all then casting your votes. As always, I'll put a link to the polls in the description, as well as a poll on the Wolf Lord Rho Instagram for those that find that easier. So without further ado, let's waste no more time and jump straight in, with the Blood Angels taking on the Minotaurs. There are few chapters that have had such a dramatic turnaround as the Blood Angels. With the devastation of Baal, the sons of Sanguinius were shattered. They won, but barely. It cost them everything. Less than 200 Marines of the chapter remained alive, as the remnants of the Hive fleet was wiped away by the arriving Indomitus Crusade. However, in that one moment, the Blood Angels went from the precipice of destruction to the guiding light of Imperium Nihilus. Thanks to the resources of the Lord Commander, the Blood Angels were reborn. Immediately, the Servants of Khal and the Mechanicum were deployed to rebuild the chapter. And rebuild them they did. Wreckages of vessels were dragged from the surface back up into the void. And to a man, the chapter was given new life, as the Primaris creations of Sanguinius were united with their founding chapter. So it was Dante became Warden of Imperium Nihilus, and the Blood Angels became the focus of Imperium Nihilus. While not the most Codex compliant chapter, they have always stuck to the guiding limit of 1,000 Marines. However, in truth they have rarely remained at such a number, due to the darker aspects of Sanguinius's legacy. Even now, with their rebuild, it's unlikely the Blood Angels can field a full chapter. But for all the darker aspects of Sanguinius's line, therein does lie some advantages. The ferocity in which they fight is infamous and unmatched. Few chapters across the Imperium could stand before such an onslaught. There is a very big reason the Blood Angels remain prominent amongst the Astartes, even outside their honoured Primarch's legacy, and that is through their victories. Perhaps the biggest reason for that is Dante himself. No chapter master, not Calgar, not Azrael, not Helbrecht or even Grimnar, can match his tally of victories. Dante is a breed apart. He has led his chapter for over 1,000 years, and never once has he succumbed to the weight of that responsibility. There was no one who Guilliman could turn to other than him, and Dante has taken this extra weight without complaint. Determined to bring the Emperor's light back to the Dark Imperium. Now, for all Dante's reputation, the truth is he is struggling. The wounds from the devastation refuse to heal, and he is becoming forced to spend more time within his sarcophagus. While his tactical acumen is as sharp as ever, it does have to be stated he is struggling physically. And as of yet, he has not attempted to cross the Rubicon Primaris. Now, thankfully, Dante doesn't have to carry the burden alone, and he has a host of legendary figures beside him. None more so than Mephiston, Chief Librarian of the Blood Angels. Mephiston is quite possibly the most powerful psyker within the Astartes entire. So overwhelming is the Lord of Death's power, he had to cross the Rubicon Primaris to contain it. And now he has become something even greater than the man he was before, and something far more dangerous. If that wasn't enough, the Angels can count on figures such as Astarath the Redeemer, Captain Carleon, High Priest Corbulo, and Chaplain Lamartes. The Blood Angels are a fearsome prospect for any chapter to face, and it's only right they should be pitted against another close combat orientated chapter in the Minotaurs. The Minotaurs are a mystery. The entire history of the chapter is shrouded in secrecy. It's ambiguous when they were even truly founded, and the teases that have been seen have given several different possibilities. One heritage points to the lineage of Perturabo, others even possibly Angron. One thing regarding this chapter, however, is their prowess in battle. The Minotaurs are one of the Astartes' best shock and assault chapters, specializing in siege and attrition warfare. They often choose campaigns where they can deploy in full chapter strength, bringing the full might of their chapter to bear. When it comes to the fighting strength of the chapter, their undoubted ties to the High Lords of Terror must arise. As it could well be said, the Minotaurs were created specifically for the High Lords of Terror's personal bidding. They are virtually never at anything below full fighting strength, seemingly able to replace and replenish losses faster than anyone else. Their armories are always filled with the best equipment available to the Astartes chapters, and they can boast a hoard of powerful relics claimed from other chapters. If the Minotaurs are a bit new to you, make sure to check out Book 2 in the Watchers of the Throne series, The Regent's Shadow, for a real glimpse of this mysterious chapter, because it'll certainly fire your imagination. None more so than their chapter master Asterion Moloch. This guy is a beast. Used so often by the High Lords to take out other chapters, he has become an expert at fighting other Astartes, systematically dismantling them on the battlefield before obliterating their leaders personally. A task and feat he revels in. Honestly, outside the Space Wolves, there's probably no other chapter more suited for this type of contest. But is it enough? Is it enough to take out the Blood Angels? Well, the Minotaurs are well positioned. They are always at full fighting strength, the 1000 codex limit, so they will almost certainly have a slight numbers advantage. They also boast about as good an armory as you can possibly get, and they specialize in destroying other chapters. I mean, that ticks a lot of boxes right away. They've got the backing of the High Lords, and considering Dante's struggles, unbelievably you have to consider him being at a disadvantage against Moloch. This would be an incredibly tough battle for the Sons of Sanguinius. But for some reason, I just can't count them out. The Minotaurs might have the High Lords behind them, but Dante's the Warden of Imperium Nihilus. The Minotaurs may specialise in Astartes warfare. Well, they haven't faced the Blood Angels. They haven't faced a commander with the experience of Dante, a man who has carried the legacy of Sanguinius on his shoulders. Only a fool would write that old lion out. For me, this would be far closer than fans of the Angels may like to admit. Being made up virtually completely of Primaris recruits these days, the Blood Angels are a chapter still learning what it means to be a Blood Angel. Dante can't be everywhere at once. With the monumental effort that's gone into rebuilding them, and with Dante's leadership, I'd give the Blood Angels a close victory. But I don't think there'd be much left coming out the other side. But as always, it's your opinion that matters. Moving on, we have the Dark Angels taking on the Raven Guard. Now this is an interesting clash of styles, yet two chapters really shrouded in shadows and secrets. The Raven Guard, as we know, are strongly moulded in the image of their Primarch. They are the preeminent Astartes at guerrilla warfare. Many enemies have no idea the Raven Guard are even present before the first of their warriors appears amongst them. And while the Raven Guard's fate within the heresy was one of tragedy, with the implementation of the Codex Astartes, the Raven Guard have excelled. Embracing the tenets of Rabute Guilliman, the chapter has managed to merge the philosophy with their own heritage. As such, the Raven Guard are perhaps one of the most flexible chapters out there, able to use the stealth tactics for which they are renowned, whilst equally able to bring the relentless, overpowering force of your standard Astartes chapter. It absolutely makes the Raven Guard a difficult prospect to anticipate. Anyone counting out the Raven Guard would do well to remember that upon Corax's first meeting with the renowned strategist Rabute Guilliman, Corax actually defeated him in their first simulated campaign. And those same tenets and philosophies live on today within his sons. If the Dark Angels underestimated them, they would be sorely surprised. The Raven Guard's fleets also use unique stealth technology, meaning they're equally as able to ambush you in the void as they are on the surface. Now, for all the Raven Guard's skill, there is one problem they face, and that's in regard to their fighting strength. The Raven Guard have always struggled with recruitment, be it the resources available on their homeworld, or the damage done by Corax to their gene seed. Either way, Terra itself still has to play a large role in their recruitment, and as such this makes the whole process take longer. The Raven Guard as such are a chapter always below full fighting numbers. And that could be a particular problem, as they've been drawn against the first. Probably the most uncompromising chapter they could have faced. The Dark Angels are the Emperor's grim resolution. They are the first. They have a legacy no other can match, and they remain true to the determination of their Primarch today. While the events of Caliban's destruction and the hunt for the Fallen has guided their fates for the past 10,000 years, the Dark Angels have remained a dominant force, even as a chapter. They have access still to the haloed relics within their vaults, some predating the heresy itself. and so are able to bring devastating weaponry to the battlefield. For the most part, they followed the Codex Astartes, operating with 10 companies and respecting the 1,000 marine limit, though their two great divergences are the Deathwing and the Ravenwing. Fighting strength for the Dark Angels is most likely a big advantage. While their current numbers aren't exactly known, their gene seed has always been one of the purest, and it's highly unlikely this has changed recently. Considering Azrael is contemplating a move into the Somnium Stars, I think it's logical to assume the chapter is most likely operating close to full capacity. In speaking of Azrael, he has a reputation as perhaps the greatest Supreme Grand Master of his age, utterly committed to his duty, and a superb mind upon the battlefield. For me, aside from the possible numbers advantage the Dark Angels have, I also think that it's their unique nature that would match up well against the Raven Guard. For the Dark Angels have the Ravenwing, a company dedicated to fast and reactive warfare. While this may not necessarily be a factor against a standard chapter, against one who relies so heavily on maneuvering and ambush, the Ravenwing could be a real thorn in the Raven Guard's side, able to react far quicker to any prospective ambushes, and even to ensure they don't have time to transpire. For me, unfortunately, as much as I love the Sons of Korax, in my mind I lean quite strongly to the Dark Angel's side. But I'll be interested to see what you all think. Next we have the draw that broke my heart. I can't describe to you how quickly my emotions went from excitement as I drew the Space Wolves to complete and utter sadness when the White Scars came next. My two favourite Primarchs. Fate is a cruel mistress. Now, though we are 10,000 years removed from the Age of the Heresy, both of these chapters remain true to their Primarch's teachings. The Space Wolves, as we know, have never embraced the Codex Astartes, and though they agreed to be named a chapter, their numbers have always far exceeded the expected 1,000 mandate. In truth, it's most likely their role as Emperor's executioner that's given them the luxury of ignoring the Codex. And really, that makes the Space Wolves as one of the chapters most suited to any Astartes v Astartes contest, in numbers and nature. The Wolves of Rus were made to be the Emperor's sanction. And as we have seen within the Dawn of Fire series novel The Wolf Time, it's a duty Logan Grimnar still ensures to this day, refusing to bow to the returned Lord Commander. Through the Wolves' constant warfare, despite their large size, even they were suffering in the wake of Cadia's fall. Magnus's invasion, despite being defeated, had taken a heavy toll. But eventually Grimnar relented, and the Primaris were accepted. Now, the Wolves of Rus number a size not seen since the days of the Legion. And though Grimnar has used these numbers to reinforce some of his new successors, the Space Wolves undoubtedly still number within the several thousand, and they have the armories to match. As if that wasn't enough, the chapter is filled with legendary heroes, led by Logan Grimnar, the man who defied the Inquisition. Yet, for all that, the Sons of Jagatai would take no backward step. They are immersed in the storm, and know no other way. Fate has not been kind to the White Scars in recent years, Their subsector has become plagued by the ruinous powers. The very homeworld of the Scars, Chagoris, felt the impact as the forces of chaos bestrode the ancient plains. And even their chapter master, the Great Khan, was taken prisoner, rescued only after great effort. But for all this, the Scars remain defiant. The Great Khan Jubal may be physically broken, but his mind is still deadly. Now unable to bestride the field, he commands the Scars from Chagoris itself, able to master the campaign overview. On the battlefield, perhaps Carcharodon Khan now exemplifies their Primarch best. Master swordsman with a dedication to the hunt. Though the Scars have received their Primaris reinforcements, and now strive to push back the ruinous powers, it's unlikely they have reached full fighting force. And even if they had, as a Codex compliant chapter, they'd still be at a disadvantage. Without reaching their full number, it just makes their situation worse. For me, you can never underestimate the White Scars, but I just don't see any way this wouldn't be a whitewash in the Wolves' favour. And finally, our last matchup of the first round. The Carcharodon Astra versus the Imperial Fists. A little irresistible force versus the immovable object. For all the mystery of the Minotaurs earlier, the Space Sharks take it to the next level. Believed possibly to be descended from Ravengard Geneseed, the chapter's existence is dedicated beyond the Imperium's borders, taking out any and all threats they may encounter. Since the Great Rift's appearance, however, they have been granted a homeworld. How this may affect their future remains to be seen. Now this chapter is vicious, completely disregarding of civilian casualties, and most of what is known about them comes from outside observation. They clearly have embraced the Codex to some degree, though favour far more aggressive tactics, being fairly reflective of the sharks for who they take their name. They attack swift and fast, making the most of the element of surprise, doing as much damage as efficiently and swiftly as possible. If the resistance proves too strong, they retreat and try again. The ancient tactics of the Predator. Now, current fighting strength of the chapter is hard to know, having spent most of their time away from the Imperium. Most of their war gear is ancient and modified. Also, in spending this time in isolation, their recruitment is limited to their red tithes, making the fighting force of the chapter unlikely to be full. Now that said, there are records of them being involved in the Indomitus Crusade, so I think it's a safe guess to assume they are comfortably within fighting operations. Now, the Imperial Fists, Sons of Rogel Dawn. For all the Space Sharks might be juggernauts of the offensive, the Imperial Fists are their counter. Immovable, solid, unshakable. The Imperial Fists will not be broken, and that could be a little tricky for their opponents. As a Codex compliant chapter, what you see is what you get with the Imperial Fists. Much like the Ultramarines, they have become symbols for the Codex, though they have managed to retain their own Primarch's tenets and nature. In that vein, the chapter boasts more heavy siege-related war gear than any other chapter, which is saying something when you consider the likes of the Iron Hands. And in being so accustomed to wars of attrition, they have maintained larger pools of initiates, ensuring their losses are quickly and efficiently replaced. Rogaldorn would be proud. This makes the fighting strength of the Fists likely to be near the top end of the 1,000 limit, even within this darkened age of war. So I think it's safe to say that they would have the numbers edge over their opponents. And they'd also have more firepower to bring to bear, within the battlefield and without, as the one-time degrading phalanx has been brought back to optimal condition, thanks to the involvement of the Imperial Palace. For all the ferocity of the Carcharodons up close, I think they'd have a devil of a time in trying to even get there. In a void battle, sneaking up on the phalanx isn't going to be easy, and on the battlefield, the Imperial Fists are going to be hunkered down, relying on their firepower to grind you down. If the Sharks could get up close, then they'd have a chance, but it all depends if they could get there in force. With a newly appointed chapter master in the wake of the Great Rift for the Fists, perhaps Tiberos has the advantage, but there's still Captain Lysander, the man who many feel is the real Imperial Fist chapter master. There's no way he's being taken by surprise. This is a tough one, but I think the stubbornness of the Imperial Fists would just carry the day. With the Carcharodons preferring to withdraw and restrike, I feel that's right up their opponent's street. You can withdraw and come back as much as you like. They are not going anywhere. But as always everyone, it's up to you. Your vote is the one that counts. The link to the polls will be in the description. And like I said, I'll put a poll on the Wolf Lord Instagram for those that find that way easier. We have had a draw before, so your vote does matter. Tomorrow we'll have the results of all of the first round and move on to our next matchups. I'm really quite excited to see who's going to come out on top. That's it for today everyone, make sure you vote. As always, huge thank you to all my subscribers. If you're new, please consider dropping a like and subscribe to help the channel grow. And with that said, I am off and I'll see you tomorrow.